All right, let's talk about a moment when everything changed for AI. I'm talking about 2025. This is when we stopped just, asking AI questions and started giving it missions. And believe me, this wasn't just another update. It was a complete game changer, turning our handy little assistants into actual powerful partners. So, to really get a handle on what this shift feels like, I've got a perfect analogy for you. The old AI? Think of it like a GPS. Super helpful, right? It tells you where to turn, but you're still the one doing all the driving. Now, the new AI that came on the scene in 2025, that's the self-driving car. You just tell it where you want to go, lean back, and it does the rest. It literally takes the wheel. And that incredible leap, that move from GPS to self-driving car, that's what we're calling the Agentic Shift. It's all about moving from a passive tool that just waits for commands to an autonomous agent that actually takes initiative. This changes everything. Okay, so what in the world is an AI agent? What does that even mean? Well, it really boils down to three core abilities. First, it has to be able to plan. You give it a huge goal, and it breaks it down into bite-sized, manageable steps. Second, it can reason. It actually thinks through those steps before it does anything. And finally, it can execute. It doesn't just talk, it does. It uses real tools like browsers or coding environments to get the job done. So you're probably wondering, how on earth does it do all that? Let's pop the hood and see what's going on inside. The real magic here is a whole new architecture that lets the AI do something that sounds simple, but is incredibly complex. It thinks before it acts. I love this next analogy because it just clicks. The old way AI worked, it was kind of like someone in a high-pressure live interview. They're just blurting out answers as they think of them, which, can lead to some interesting mistakes. But this new agentic AI, it's more like a writer with a scratch pad. It jots down ideas, organizes its logic, fact-checks itself, and then presents you with the polished final result. It's a total night and day difference. So how does this scratch pad idea actually make the AI more reliable? Well, it's built on these four pillars. First, strategic decomposition. Fancy term for just breaking down a huge problem into smaller pieces. Second, execution stability. It checks its own logic before it does something like running code. Third, long-term consistency. It actually remembers the rules and constraints you gave it, even for super long tasks. And fourth, my favorite, self-verification loops. It literally creates little feedback systems to check its own work. Think about it. It's like an AI that solves a complex math problem and then goes back to proofread its own solution. That's the new standard of reliability we're seeing. Okay, so this new architecture doesn't just make the AI smarter. It fundamentally changes how we work with it. We're shifting from simply prompting it, just giving it commands, to actually giving it skills. And this really gets to the heart of it. The old way, prompt engineering, was all about carefully crafting your words to tell the AI what to say. But the new way, with skills, is all about equipping the AI with tools it can actually use. It's the difference between describing how to use a hammer and just handing the carpenter a hammer. This table lays it out perfectly. Look at the difference. Prompts are just text. That's it. Skills, on the other hand, are actual folders with executable code inside, real tools. Functionality-wise, a prompt is a static, one-off thing. But skills? They're composable. You can mix and match them, creating totally new abilities on the fly. And this last part is huge. Prompts are proprietary, locked to whatever platform you're on. Skills are being built on an open standard, pioneered by Anthropic, which means we're creating a universal language for AI tools that anyone can build on. That's a real game changer. So, with this incredible new tech in place, what happened next? Well, exactly what you'd expect. The race was on. Late 2025 became this absolute frenzy of innovation as all the major players rolled out their own agent platforms. Of course, the big frontier labs led the charge. You had OpenAI dropping Operator, their framework for massive enterprise-level agents. Think optimizing a global supply chain. Then Google came in with Gemini agents, which were multimodal right out of the gate and integrated into everything, from your workspace apps to actual robotics. And Anthropic, who started the whole skills standard, they deployed Claude agents, really focusing on safe multi-step reasoning for tricky fields like research and legal analysis. But it wasn't just the big labs, right? You had the enablers and the disruptors jumping in. NVIDIA, for example, introduced Nematron agents, which were optimized for their new Blackwell chips and made everything run like 5 times faster. Then you had Cognition Labs with Devin 2.0, a specialized agent that could write entire software projects 10 times faster than a human. No joke. And Adept? They raised a cool $500 million for agents that can directly control the apps on your desktop, like Excel or Photoshop. Wild stuff. All right, so this all sounds very futuristic. I get it. But this isn't science fiction. This agentic shift is already out there in the wild, having a massive, measurable impact. So let's just start with a number that kind of speaks for itself. 300%. That was the year-over-year growth in enterprise adoption of these agents in 2025. That is not a gradual trend. That is an explosion. And what does that growth look like on the ground? It means that by the end of 2025, 1 in every 3 Fortune 500 companies was actively using AI agents. Think about that. In just a year, they went from being a cool experiment to a core business tool. And we're talking about some seriously mind-blowing applications here. In finance, you've got JP Morgan using agents to scan 1 million transactions an hour to catch fraud. In science, NASA is using them to run complex simulations for Mars missions. And maybe most incredibly, in medicine, agents from In Silico Medicine designed 3 potential new cancer drugs in just a matter of months. That's a process that used to take years or even decades. So let's bring it all back to that self-driving car. The AI now has the keys. It's in the driver's seat, which leaves us with a really, really big question to ponder. Who decides the destination? The answer to that is going to shape everything that comes next. The journey is really just getting started.